Kage Nishino is widely recognized as a talented actress, a diligent student, and someone who gets along well with her peers. However, this public image is a facade that she has constructed following a traumatic experience where a fan kidnapped her. Deep down, Nishino harbors feelings of anger, bitterness, and contempt towards others, especially her classmate Minoru Kagenou, who barely acknowledges her existence. Kagenou, on the other hand, is seen carrying weights in his bag and clothes to enhance his physical strength. One day, Nishino is abducted by criminals who plan to demand a ransom for her release. However, they are foiled by Kagenou, who appears in a mask and calls himself the stylish ruffian slayer. It soon becomes apparent that Kagenou is a skilled fighter and a dangerous brawler, known as the Balaclava Berserker, who can take on gangs single-handedly using dual crowbars. Kagenou manages to defeat the kidnappers and free Nishino. Initially, Nishino suspects Kagenou's motives, but a few days later, Kagenou is unexpectedly hit by a truck and dies. Through a series of flashbacks, Kagenou reveals that he had always aspired to become a secret mastermind who could control society from the shadows and protect the innocent, much like the fictional heroes he idolized throughout his life. He relentlessly trained in martial arts, hoping to one day attain the kind of power that could rival a nuclear bomb. However, Kagenou comes to realize that no matter how hard he trains, he will never be able to achieve his dream because the laws of physics dictate that he is only an ordinary human being. In the present day, Kagenou is reincarnated in an alternate world with magical powers, where he still harbors his ambition of becoming the Eminence in shadow and controlling society from the shadows. After being reborn in an alternate world as Sid Kagenou, the son of Baron and Lady Kagenou, and young brother to Claire, Sid resumes his vigilante ways by secretly training and killing bandits. One day, he discovers a living blob of rotting flesh and manages to cure the curse afflicting it, revealing it to be an elven girl. Sid, in his persona as the Eminence in shadow, tricks the girl into believing she is a descendant of heroes who defeated a demon named Diablos and that a cult is trying to resurrect the demon. The girl agrees to form a group called Shadow Garden to resist the cult. Sid gives her the name Alpha but secretly finds it amusing that she believes his made-up story. 3 years later, Claire is kidnapped, and Alpha, who has now recruited 6 girls as the Shadow 7, locates Claire and discovers that she was kidnapped by the cult of Diablos. Sid assumes that the girls are only playing along with him and remains unaware that the cult actually exists and intends to use Claire as Diablo's host body when he is resurrected. Sid leads an attack against the cultists, thinking that they are just normal bandits, and most of the cultists are killed. During the chaos, Claire escapes and later attends Midra Academy as planned, with no knowledge of Sid's involvement. Sid remains oblivious to what has truly transpired, and is surprised when Alpha and the other Shadows suddenly announce that they are leaving. The Shadow 7 goes their separate ways to hunt down the cult worldwide, but Sid is under the impression that they simply lost interest in his game. He enrolls in the same school as Claire and tries to blend in by befriending average boys Skell and Poe. As a punishment for doing poorly on a test, Sid is forced to confess his love for Princess Alexia, causing him to be publicly embarrassed. Sid plays along with his role as a background character, but he is stunned when Alexia agrees to become his girlfriend. Alexia invites Sid to her fencing class where he learns that she is engaged to the fencing instructor Zenon, but she does not want to marry him. Aware that he is being used and that Alexia is secretly selfish, Sid agrees to keep up the pretense of their relationship for money. After 2 weeks, Alexia reveals that she is not as skilled at fencing as her sister and becomes angry when Sid admits he likes her basic sword style. Alexia ends their fake relationship, and the next day, Zenon accuses Sid of kidnapping Alexia after she disappears, resulting in Sid's arrest as a suspect. Alexia has her blood taken by a cult scientist who claims it contains demon DNA while being held captive next to a mutated girl. Sid is tortured by knights who are trying to find Alexia, but he pretends to be a weak and innocent character to make himself look cool. After 5 days, Princess Iris orders Sid's release. Alpha informs Sid that they have been monitoring the cult while growing Shadow Garden's influence. Sid is unaware that Shadow Garden has actually become a powerful organization, and continues to think of it as a role-playing game. Alpha plans to rescue Alexia with 114 soldiers, and Sid goes along with it, thinking the soldiers are just background actors. During the attack, Sid kills the knights who tortured him and his soldiers search for Alexia. The scientist injects Alexia's blood into the mutated girl, who becomes a demon and frees Alexia. Alexia finds out that Xenon gave her to the cult to be promoted to a high-ranking knight. Alexia attacks Xenon, but he easily defeats her. Suddenly, Sid appears. Xenon accuses Sid of being responsible for the recent attacks on the cult and reveals himself as one of the core members of the group. The demon girl goes on a rampage in the city and engages in a fight with Princess Iris. Alpha discloses her identity as a member of Shadow Garden to Iris and manages to defeat the demon before disappearing. Sid defeats Xenon in a duel, and Alexia is captivated by his sword style, not realizing that he is actually Sid in disguise. Xenon transforms into a demon by taking pills, but Sid uses a magic bomb based on the principles of a nuclear explosion to destroy everything in the blast radius and kill Xenon. Most of the city is destroyed, but Alexia reunites with Iris and is determined to become a master of her chosen sword style. Alexia offers to be Sid's girlfriend after Zenon's death, but he rejects her and she violently punishes him. Alpha investigates a group that has been pretending to be Shadow Garden while committing crimes. Princess Iris orders a full investigation into the cult of Diablos and Shadow Garden. Lastly, Sid meets a girl with pink hair. A group posing as Shadow Garden begins to commit murders. Princess Iris retrieves a cult artifact and entrusts it to Sherry, a brilliant researcher with pink hair. Sid's friends take him to a new department store where he learns that Gamma, his subordinate, opened the store to fund Shadow Garden. Gamma has created stores in every city in the world, making him incredibly wealthy, but Sid still believes Gamma is just role-playing. Sid also meets Nu, the newest member of Shadow Garden. On his way home, Sid sees Alexia fighting several murderers and helps her, killing the murderers and handing one over to Nu for questioning. Elsewhere, Gaunt Knight, the leader of the murderers, confirms that they have found the relic. Alexia confirms that Shadow Garden is not behind the murders, but Princess Iris still considers them enemies of the kingdom. Sid's friends Skull and Po both confess their love to girls, with Skull being punished by the girl's fiancé and Po being arrested for stalking. Sid decides to give the remaining chocolate to anyone, and it ends up being Sherry. Sherry's adoptive father informs her that the chocolates were likely a love confession from Sid and urges her to respond quickly. Nu informs Sid that the murderer she questioned was a typical member of the cult who brainwash orphans with drugs and magic to become foot soldiers. She also warns him that a soldier named Rex is in the city on a mission for the cult. However, Sid is preoccupied with the sword tournament at the academy, which he and his friends Skell and Po enter to impress girls. Nu mistakenly thinks Sid is plotting to deal with Rex when he rambles about the festival. At the festival, Sid pretends to be a secret hero while dueling Princess Rose, the student president. He repeatedly feigns injury but impresses Rose with his fighting spirit. Sherry asks to be friends with Sid before dating, but he doesn't remember her and decides to avoid her. Sherry learns that Sid's relationship with Alexia was fake, but Alexia is upset that another girl is interested in Sid. An election for a vacant student council seat is announced, but the academy is captured by the fake Shadow Garden, thanks to an anti-magic barrier erected by Gaunt Knight. Rose is almost killed without her magic, and Sid gets hurt while trying to protect her. Sid was eager to appear heroic by fighting terrorists and saving Rose. However, Rose mistakenly thinks that Sid sacrificed himself because he loves her. The students are taken to the auditorium where Sid secretly heals himself. Rex attacks Sherry in an attempt to retrieve the Eye of Avarice, a relic that generates a barrier, but Iris Crimson Knights help her escape. Sid begins to fight the terrorists and saves Sherry. Sherry identifies the eye as the source of the barrier, and explains that it absorbs magic and explodes when full. Sid deduces that the cult is using the eye to kill the students and prevent them from becoming knights. Sherry's research indicates that the eye's control unit may be able to stop the explosion, and she needs tools from her room. Sid volunteers to retrieve them. Meanwhile, Rex warns Gaunt Knight that someone is killing their men, and Gaunt Knight suspects the real Shadow Garden is responsible. It is revealed that Gaunt Knight's true goal is to be reinstated to the Knights of Round. Sid kills Rex. Nu sees that the only surviving Crimson Knight is Marco, her former fiancé, and is tempted to kill him. However, Sid delays Nu and her fellow Shadows from attacking the terrorists until Sherry has the control relic ready. Nu ultimately decides to spare Marco's life. Sherry activates the control relic, which deactivates the eye and its barrier. Sid arrives in disguise as Eminence, and his army of shadows begins to attack and kill the terrorists. Iris becomes angry because it looks like Shadow Garden is responsible for the attack. Sid finds Gaunt Knight burning Sherry's research and reveals that he is Ruslan, Sherry's adoptive father. Ruslan was once a master swordsman, but he became ill and lost his skills. He believed that the eye could cure him, so he formed a relationship with Sherry's mother, who was studying it. When she became too scared to continue her research, Ruslan killed her and adopted Sherry to continue her research. Ruslan combines the eye with the control relic and regains his sword skills, but Sid is still the better swordsman. Ruslan brags that he has framed Shadow Garden for his crimes, but Sid kills him without concern and Sherry witnesses it. The kingdom designates Shadow Garden as a terrorist organization. Sherry tells Sid that she will miss him, but now that Ruslan is dead, she has decided to transfer to a scientific research academy to pursue her new goal. When Sid asks what her new goal is, she insists that it is a secret, but her dark aura suggests that it is sinister. Alpha contacts Sid and assigns him a mission to visit the sacred city of Lindworm, while Beta, Epsilon, and Nu also receive their own missions. Alexia and Iris visit Sid's department store as they are also heading to Lindworm for the goddess trial. Alexia purchases thong underwear to attract a certain man. In a flashback, after defeating Ruslan, Sid pretends to have survived his injuries to impress Rose, who promises to accept his feelings by becoming his lover and accompanies him to Lindworm. Sid discovers Lindworm is a city where goddess Beatrix is worshipped and empowered 3 legendary heroes. Rose hopes that if Sid wins the trials, her father may allow them to marry. Sid mistakenly believes Rose is trying to convert him to worship Beatrix and avoids her advances. In Lindworm, Sid meets Beta, who has become famous by publishing stories he heard from Sid from Earth, such as Cinderella, Romeo and Juliet, and Star Wars. Beta gives Sid his mission briefing encoded in an ancient language. Meanwhile, a cultist kills Archbishop Drake of Beatrix Church, and although Epsilon manages to kill one of the culprit's men, the murderer escapes.